explained to Stuart that God is a merciful God. And Stuart had been a good person all of his life. He had helped many, many, many people. And I believed that God had a place for him on the other side and was waiting for him.
After more than an hour, the supposed ghost still had not responded to Conover's entreaties, but the investigator was certain of the spirit's presence.
I could see Stuart's ectoplasm. The ectoplasm is the energy that goes in front of a spirit that helps him move through the air. It's made up of electricity and energy. And I was able to see that.
He again pleaded with the spirit to appear, now worried that it might ignore his request.
And when I had about reached the end of my rope is when the hallway in the basement filled with this beautiful blue light that was very dense. You couldn't see through it at all.
I didn't see the light at first until Shirley nudged me and said, "See, look." And then I moved my head over and saw it, and if I would never saw it, I'd never believed it had happened. To me, it was like a bluish-green light. It was extremely light, bright, like a welder welding.
Then, in a matter of seconds, the blue light faded away.
It was at that point that I took my Bible and I stood up and made contact with Stuart and helped Stuart cross over into the light.
The house felt like you had 150 guests in the house and you was cram-packed and you couldn't fit another person in, and all of a sudden everybody just left and shut the lights off. It was just a very empty feeling, like nobody was there no more. And you was all by yourself.
Conover says at that moment the ghost of Stuart Wall left the house forever. The investigator immediately turned to the camera, excited about seeing the event on tape. This is what they saw.
Yeah. Guys. Oh, look at the light.
Tom, being a policeman, said, "I want to look at your videotape because I know that light's on the videotape." We put the videotape in, you heard our conversation, but there was no light on the videotape. And Shirley said, "Why?" And I said, "Because we were the only ones meant to see that light."
Since that night, calm has returned to the house on Twin Oaks Court. The mysterious sounds and terrifying visions are gone. Did the ghost of Stuart Wall pace the floors of this house? Was that spirit finally ushered to another world during this ritual? Skeptics say emphatically that ghosts do not exist, and that logical reasoning can explain all anomalies linked to spirits. Professor of psychology Terence Hines believes that the Browns' ghost is a figment of their imagination.
When you go into any new house, new to you, there are going to be strange sounds and events that you're not familiar with. And so if you go in thinking, my God, somebody committed suicide in Johnny's room, and you hear something odd, it's very easy to think, oh, maybe that was a ghost.
Particularly easy for Linda Brown, who had grown up next door to the Walls and was 6 years old when Stuart Wall committed suicide. As a child, she didn't know how he died, but as an adult, she learned the tragic truth. Hines thinks this must have contributed to Tom and Linda's conclusion that the strange sounds and visions were caused by a ghost. Hines says this is natural. The human mind is actually pre-programmed to enforcing order onto strange experiences.
The human brain is set up to create perceptions, especially when we're faced with kind of random nebulous stimuli. The brain frantically tries to wire them all together to make some coherent sense out of that.
Believers in ghosts, like parapsychologist Lloyd Auerbach, disagree that the ghost of Stuart was purely a function of Tom and Linda's perception. He argues that when several witnesses are reporting the same or similar experiences, as happened in the Brown house, those witnesses must be taken seriously.
It's a subjective experience experienced by many people across many years, which lends very much credibility to there being actually something there and that it wasn't just imagined by people. And that's what we look at, is how many people, how many witnesses there are. what kind of corroboration we get. Witness testimony in hauntings seems to be fairly consistent.
Eyewitness testimony is unconvincing because you can get eyewitnesses who will swear on the proverbial stack of Bibles that they've seen things that we clearly know don't exist. For example, you can find, if you go back to the Middle Ages, you can find people who swear that they saw witches flying on broomsticks across the sky. And I have no doubt that they really think they saw that.
Conover and the Browns are certain they saw a blue light, but Tom Flynn, a skeptic who has examined hauntings, says that if they did, it should have shown up on their videotape.
Video cameras respond to the same spectrum of colors that the human eye does. So if you're pointing a video camera at something and you see a blue light, so should it. So I think it's very revealing that these three people report that they've had this experience, and yet their own videotape doesn't verify it.
Flynn also says that several of Conover's claims that he feels a presence, can move spirits through the light, and is able to see ectoplasm are based on mythology commonly used by those who believe in ghosts.
One of the stock tricks that spirit mediums would do at their seances, starting about in the 1860s, was to produce ectoplasm. We know now that 19th century mediums were using sleight of hand tricks, but out of this came the tradition that this ectoplasm, this kind of semi-material stuff, existed that pertained to the ghosts.
Believers say that Conover may be relying on terms from popular culture, but his ritual appeared to be effective. Since Conover's visit, the Browns are no longer plagued by mysterious noises and phantom footsteps.
The Ghostbuster that came into Tom and Linda's house may have had some genuine ability to affect the environment. This one Ghostbuster did something. What he did worked.
Professor Finucane counters that the best way to eliminate imaginary ghosts is by using imaginary ghost busting.
This is psychological relief more than anything else. In other words, he said the things these people wished to have said. He did the things which seemed to be appropriate to what they wanted to see and hear.
Was the apparition of Stuart Wall's ghost a shared vision or a shared illusion? Does the mind make the senses lie? Or do troubled spirits of the dead roam this earth? The answer depends on your faith in the unexplained. For some who say ghosts haunt their lives, relief comes when the spirit leaves or the victims depart. For others, no house can be a home. For these families, there is no respite and no escape from the spirits of the unexplained. A painful divorce in 1968 left Beth alone with a small child and little money. She was rebuilding her life when she met Bob Batesel a few years later. They fell in love, got married, and Bob adopted Beth's daughter, Leah. In 1971, when the Batesels moved into this two-family house in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the young family's newfound happiness would be fleeting. Strange events began happening in the house. At first, Bob and Beth dismissed the odd activity. Lamps swinging, doors opening and closing, objects appearing in the wrong places. Then they were forced to confront the terror trapped in the walls of their new home. The pungent smell of rotting flowers wafted throughout the rooms. Temperatures supposedly rose to sweltering levels for no apparent reason. They began to witness shocking sights. Knives, forks, and baby bottles darted about the house, making them fear for their lives.
I felt very scared, unsafe, undermined. You didn't know what was coming next, and that's a very undermining feeling of never knowing that the ground or the rug is being pulled out from under you. So you didn't know what to expect, so you were always aware. So the stress level was very